Morning, everyone. My name is Albert, and this is Vlogs About Nothing. Thank you very much for taking the time out of your night to join me. I really appreciate that. Tonight, we're going to be taking a small kind of a deep dive, alright? I'm not too familiar with the subject matter myself, so, I definitely encourage all of you at home to never listen to what I say and definitely fact check and do all of your own research in accordance with however you feel your perspective to be in alignment with. You feel me? I mean, you're an adult. Make your own decisions. I can't tell you what to think. And I'm saying this because 23andMe is something that interests me, and for many different reasons, but without going too far off of the iceberg and into the pond where it goes very deep, I do want to talk about some empirical evidence that's been presented. And most recently, I think if you guys aren't aware of the situation or what I'm talking or insinuating as it concerns deep dives and icebergs and so forth, if you haven't turned on any electronic device recently, you wouldn't maybe know, or maybe you would because it's been going on for so long. P. Diddy and all of the troubles that he is currently going through legally. And I gotta tell you, right, as a millennial, somebody who grew up just as all of my peers did, right, and just even people a little bit older than me, this man has shaped industry, in entertainment industry, in lots of different ways, so many different ways, and I think more ways than we'd all like to admit. Some of our favorite stars right now are deleting accounts, not talking about things. I think it's just an interesting time. It's sort of like Me Too, but way more at stake. And, to compare them, they should both be put on the same kind of level. But regardless, the difference between the Me Too movement and this newfound movement where we're now learning that some of our favorite stars, regardless of their sex, have been some of the worst human beings we've ever even had an opportunity to hear about, much less understanding and beginning to conceptualize that some of these reported and alleged crimes have been committed by the very people that we have idolized for, in some instances, a very long period of time. Now, I opened up the video with 23andMe, and now we're talking about P. Diddy, so I know I'm a little weird, and sometimes I maybe don't make sense to you at home or wherever you're at, but you'd be surprised to hear that the running conspiracy theory is that the media is distracting all of us with more entertainment news from the Puff Daddy camp in New York City as he's in detention in jail awaiting, I guess, sentencing for crimes we all know he's committed. And regardless, so there's this thing. There's this running commentary that is on 4chan, it's on Reddit, it's on Quoras, it's on 5chan, it's everywhere. It's in a lot of Discord conversations, and what we're talking about here is the distraction part. So let's forget the real life sort of monster that Puff Daddy is and all of the true, in fact, arguably alleged crimes that have been perpetrated by him. And let's talk about 23andMe. Because that's what the running theory is the distraction from the media is coming as a result of not wanting to discuss 23andMe. So recently, last month, or a couple months ago, the entire board of 23andMe stepped down. Now, this is not common at all. In fact, it's not just uncommon, it's not rare, it's something that just simply doesn't happen. There are things that happen in the corporate world, and there are things that don't happen in the corporate world. And when is the last time you've heard of an entire corporate board of $1 billion corporation walking out and quitting? And you know what happens when that happens? Because a lot of us just recently learned what happens when that happens. And what happens when that happens is you get delisted from the NASDAQ, from the stock market. So right now, as it is, so a couple months ago, 23andMe was a publicly traded company. They were able to be exchanged and sold and bought. And now, with the delisting of 23andMe as a multi-billion-dollar corporation, it is now under the umbrella of private ownership. Now, if you don't know too much, and again, the rabbit hole goes so deep, I can't even begin to talk about some of the allegations that are made as it concerns 23andMe and why the board decided to all quit at the same time and in result get delisted from the stock exchange, and as a result are now a private company who has the absolute ability to privatize all of our genetics as it's reported to them and for sale to aggregate in data. And this is really important. I'm not the guy to explain it to you because it's a difficult thing to explain genetics. I'm not a geneticist, I just understand that when 23andMe had the privacy data leak, the breach, where like 100 million people or something, a lot of people had all of their genetic information hijacked and hacked into. And then the running theory goes deeper. And again, do all of your own research. But there's something with Judaism and the genetics of a certain group of people that identify as a certain religion. Again, it's a really deep rabbit hole, and it's an interesting one because 23andMe is a really big company, and it does a lot of things that we really can't even begin to understand in terms of just how sometimes it doesn't give us a complete genetic makeup or profile of all of our lineage. Sometimes there's gaps in our lineage that cannot be explained by 23andMe, or the fact that there are certain groups of people that are very interested in not sharing their genetic information with the rest of us human beings. It comes down to secrecy, privacy, corruption, and it doesn't matter if this is one big distraction, the Puff Daddy thing, as it concerns the really big deal and it is a big deal. 23andMe, it's a huge deal. All of the people that got their genetic information stolen, I'm sure they're concerned about the future of this company. I guess the people who were in charge of it and sat on the board were more looking out probably for their future as it concerned what would happen when the company did become private and its then intrinsic value laying within the very control of just a certain handful of people, as opposed to a board that answers to stockholders. I mean, when corporations, turn anti-corporate and go private, we should be concerned because corporations are also they're already the standard of shade. But what's super sus is when the standard of shade decides that, it's cool. We wanted to make all this money going public. We're just gonna be private again. Let's just all of those years of research and all of the IPO and the whole speech about wanting to do good and well for stockholders and things like this. Let's just forget that. No more dividends. We are no longer a corporation. We're private now. Again, we need to be interested in things like this, for the very least, to understand what makes it so more valuable to delist yourself and become private, as opposed to arguably the unlimited amount of wealth that you can attain from being publicly traded and listed on the stock exchange. I think the difference between the two, obviously, is who is accountable for the company. And I feel like big corporations turning private overnight in the weirdest of circumstances is not exactly being transparent, open, and honest and in good faith. And I feel like there's more to it. Obviously, somebody over there has decided that there is far more money to be made from going private. Now, that could be the surface argument, and that's understandable. Okay, we get it. But what exactly is worth so much money that needs to be private and should only be controlled by one or two or a handful of people in a private company setting without having to disseminate the kind of transparency that one does have to disseminate when you are a publicly traded company? Corporations are legal citizens. This is what the Constitution has established. Now, as legal citizens and being treated as single individual people in the court of law, the problem with that is we can't put them in jail, right? You know, corporations are, and I don't want to get too far off. I just want you guys to do all of your own research. I know that I did, and I know that I wasn't surprised at all because there is a ton of money. And forget the money. I think it's not about the money. I think there's more interest in keeping things secret for certain groups of people around the world that have money and influence and power than there are people who are not having any kind of fear whatsoever as to figuring out where we come from, because intrinsically we'd have a very that would be very beneficial for a lot of people, right? I mean, it's nice to know where you come from, but clearly there's a small group of people somewhere on this planet that are bent on making sure that their genetic information is not shared with the public. And again, I respect people's privacy, that's fine, but at some point, I mean, why so shady? You know, are we all just people? I mean, like, we can't be that much different than each other, and I don't think that we are. I think that some simple math tells everybody that, like, we're only 12 generations or something removed from, like, being all related to each other. Isn't that weird? I'm just saying, like, there's not much diversity as it is. I don't know what the big deal is about having public available information as it concerns your individual genetics that then go into aggregate data to discern and disseminate patterns that could potentially provide people with cancer treatment in the future, or just kind of a flag that may be presented to a person because they might be more genetically prone to something. This is weird. At the very best, this is weird. 23andMe, look it up and determine for yourself. And then also think about how the media does, and historically they have, and it's called propaganda. Typically, when shady things are happening, we are all distracted by Johnny Depp and Amber Heard or O.J. Simpson and the other one, or there's a lot of distractions, you feel me? And when the media makes it a point to distract you, it's only normal to, like, wonder why. You know, why is so much energy being put into taking down Puff Daddy when all of us from the comfort of our home can provide the prosecutor with enough evidence to lock the guy up for 30 years because it's all been public? So, like, I don't know, like, why we're, like, still wondering about what's gonna happen to that guy, because we've all known what's going to happen to that guy for a long time. So nothing's gonna change there, right? But the fact that we can't seem to talk about anything else, or that the algorithms and the feeds aren't feeding us anything more than just weird random garbage as it concerns potential people that, I mean, did we all forget about Jeffrey Epstein? You know, I mean, I'm just saying, right? Because that client list has been not out since we've all known about it, and it'll never come out. And it's just, the world's a weird place, you feel me? And all I'm saying is that 23andMe is something that we should all be looking into, because it is shady when a bunch of rich board members run a multi-billion-dollar company decide to all quit at once. This kind of teamwork doesn't even it doesn't exist out on professional sports teams, much less the high governing and influential and powerful boards that are responsible for billions of dollars and thousands of shareholders. It's really weird. It's like, when these guys want to get things done, they get them done. I mean, the banks hated the government until Lehman and Sachs decided to hit Uncle Sam and Hank Paulson up for loans that they not only never didn't pay back, but used to pay them own selves bonuses. That's the mortgage crisis. That's what happened when they all decided to underwrite shady, terrible loans. I couldn't make this stuff up. I wish I was. At some point, you wish you were making this stuff up, but then you realize pretty quickly that you're not. So I hope that you guys have a really wonderful night and look into the 23andMe thing because it's a real interesting thing. It really is. All right, bye.